Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com tells us about the meltdown in gold and silver this week. He also believes the Russell 2000 is about to top out. Doug Casey from Casey Research believes now is the time to stock up on gold and silver while they're still affordable. He believes China's yuan, backed by gold, will eventually replace the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Market historian Bob Hoye talks about the positive message sent to the business community with the election of Conservative Doug Ford in Ontario. He also tells us where you might want to put your money in case the markets take a sudden drop. Plus, at the end of the show, we'll have company showcase updates from American Manganese President Larry Reaugh, Carl Data Solutions Greg Johnston, and Cypress Development's Don Mosher. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp, RMO, on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Reaugh shear zone in Ontario, with grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program to test numerous targets located by recent groundwork is planned for early 2018. Please visit our website at rmroyalty.com.
Vatic Ventures Corp is a potash exploration company focused on the Korat Basin in Thailand, the world's largest undeveloped potash resource. Vatic's management has extensive potash exploration and development experience in Thailand. Vatic will have marketing advantage compared to Western producers. Drill program commences this spring. Vatic trades on the TSX Venture, symbol VCV, and on Frankfurt, symbol V8V2. Visit our website, vaticventures.com.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com, where you'll find insightful market commentary and timely technical analysis. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Good to be with you, Jim.
The Russell 2000 has been a bit of a darling this year, but is it still the darling of the markets?
Well, you know, darlings are like trends. They're good until they come to an end. And at this point, the Russell, which has been clearly the bellwether on the upside, together with some of these technology stocks since the February low, we're getting up to some pretty important targets. And you know, one thing we look at the depth of corrections that markets have, and then how they recover coming out of that. And if we go back to the 2007 to 2009 decline in the market, and you look for retracements of that, normally you'd look for a Fibonacci, maybe a 38 or a 50% retracement. But then we also look at them when they go beyond the highs. So when they retrace, in this case, 261% of the decline, you end up with upside targets. And the Russell 2000 has managed to do that as of the second half of this week. And if we look back at what happened earlier in the year, the Dow came with, after its big run into January, that climatic move, right at the tail end of it, it came within about 80 points of its target after that dramatic, you know, we're talking about a rally that was 9 years in length, and so it came very close to its target level. Well, we're seeing that in the Russell, and the normal action when you've had this type of movement, that extent of a run, is that you'll end up in a consolidation phase, and you'll end up with higher volatility, such as we saw in the Dow and the S&P for the last couple of months. And I wouldn't be at all surprised that that's what will start to happen in these smaller caps. They've had excellent moves, and not only are we getting upside measurements, but we're also getting some pretty good short-term indications of excesses on the upside. So the Russell maybe has got another few points left in it, but I think the easy part of the move is behind us.
Oil, what do you expect to happen there?
Well, the break to 64 was pretty much on track coming out of that April high. The May was to be the sort of the top with a reversal down. So 64 was a good target level. Retraced a little over half of the rally we had up to the high at 72. We've now, in this last week and a half, we've had a decent little bounce. We've retraced about 35% of the break from 72 to 64. We've got new resistance at 67. And what normally would happen when you have a monthly sell signal like we did, you'll get two waves of selling. The first one, if you're really weak, it will overlap the last major high, which in our case would have been that February-March period. And what we've done is we've come back and we've just penetrated that in a minor amount and then had this bounce to 67. Had it been a really hard break, I think we could have said there would have been 100% chance that we would have the next leg down to $58 to $60. Because it has a small overlap, it's got a very high chance of having that second leg down. But the $67 level that we bounced back to during the middle of the week, that's going to become an absolute critical level. So I think that's what people need to watch. I still think we will get the second leg down, but if it were to reverse earlier, then you have to be willing to look at that and go with it. For now, I'm hoping that if we get this next leg down, that the XLE, the energy ETF, the XEG here in Canada, will provide some good oversold signals, because the optimum here is that we will get a good rally out of whatever low comes into place here in the next month or two.
What do you think is going to happen with gold and silver stocks?
Well, the stocks actually were doing reasonably well relative to bullion up until the middle of this last week. You take a look at the GDX divided by gold, or we look at silver rallying versus gold. There were some positive signs, but right on Thursday at the top end of the run, silver had 9 consecutive days, closing above 4 days earlier. That is a sequential 9 sell setup, and usually you'll get a good correction after that. In this case, it was a pretty severe correction. And we look back at what else was going on. Well, the U.S. dollar, it was really the name of the game here. We had that midweek move by the Fed to raise interest rates as everybody expected, and they're looking for maybe 2 more hikes before the year is over. But this resilience of the U.S. dollar, the ability to hold up, makes it very difficult for the metals to move up with it. And so here we've got gold down in the 1280 range. I think we've got a 1660 print in silver. You're probably looking at another wave to the downside here, especially in the gold market, before we can put any kind of a bottom in. Some of the time counts that I've got right now would suggest that we're at least a few weeks away before you can be looking for anything of significance for a bottom in gold.
Ross, you also have something that most people can't resist, and that's something that's free.
Well, that's what we're doing here. The Charts and Market site is up and running, and what we're doing is offering a free trial through the end of this month of June. So if you'd like to contact me at Ross Clark at chartsandmarkets.com, we'll see that you're on the list, and hopefully you like what we are putting out.
Ross, thank you so much for your help.
Thank you, Jim.
My guest has been Ross Clark from chartsandmarkets.com. Coming up, Doug Casey from Casey Research, next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications. Patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is Doug Casey. He's the founder and chairman of Casey Research, which you can find online at caseyresearch.com. He's speaking to us from Aspen, Colorado. Doug, welcome back to This Week in Money.
Well, my pleasure. Thanks.
Doug, you'll be in Vancouver next month. Where are you going to be, and what are you going to be talking about?
Well, I'll be at the Sprott Conference, which is being held at the Hotel Vancouver, and I'll be talking about economics and finance then, but we can be much more broad-ranging at the moment.
Do you have a new novel coming out this year, Doug?
Yeah, After Speculator, which came out 2 years ago, which is about the mining industry and Africa, a bush war in Africa. Our hero, Charles Knight, goes around the world and comes back and becomes a drug lord, both legal and illegal drugs, and gets in trouble again. So at this point, he's very pissed off. And the next book, which will be out in a few months, is called Assassin, and it investigates the morality and the techniques and the history, actually, of political assassinations. So that's going to be kind of a hot potato. We want to make sure that it's a tour de force. So I think it's something to look forward to. But in the meantime, I urge people to go onto Amazon and pick up Speculator and Drug Lords so they don't fall behind the power curve.
You know, it's very interesting. People are saying the Mexican government is pretty well run by the drug lords. Was that an inspiration, or...?
No, not Mexico in particular, but I'll say this. Most of the world's governments are run by either criminals or idiots. In fact, almost all of them. Because you get the worst kind of people that go into politics, not the best kind of people. It amazes me that anybody becomes enthusiastic about anybody in politics or government. It just amazes me.
We always expect that they're going to follow up on their promises and do big things. How often are we disappointed?
Yeah, well, we are. They shouldn't be doing anything, actually, because government's a coercive institution, and it really isn't necessary for most of life. It's a costly aggravation at best.
Doug, the Fed continues to hike interest rates, yet gold and silver remain in a trading range. Will gold and silver ever break out to the upside?
Oh, I'm very confident that they will. They're the only financial assets that are not simultaneously somebody else's liability. So at some point, there's going to be, they're not only going to break out, but there's going to be a bubble in gold and silver. So I just continue accumulating them.
Are junior gold and silver stocks showing any signs of an imminent bull move?
Not really. But that's exactly when you have to buy them, because as you know, they're the most volatile class of securities on Earth. So the time to buy them is times like this. You don't buy them when they're popular, because they're automatically overpriced then. So I continue to finance these companies, and I'm sure I'm going to be richly rewarded over the next, if not 6 months, the next year or 2 years at most.
What do you see ahead for the Dow and the S&P 500?
Well, look, very overpriced. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to become more overpriced, because there have been trillions and trillions of currency units created by just about every country in the world since the crisis started in 2007. And a lot more of that money could still find its way into the stock market. So it's overpriced. The market, I don't have any involvement in the market because I'm only interested in certain specialties where I think I'm on an on-level playing field. So I don't really care what the stock market does. I'm not interested. I'm just interested in individual special situation stocks.
Your thoughts on the U.S. dollar?
Well, you know, it's been said before, but very accurately, it's the healthiest horse on the way to the glue factory. But it's definitely on its way out. I think the Chinese yuan is going to replace over the next generation. And I think the Chinese, in order to facilitate that happening, are going to back the yuan with gold. And at that point, why is anybody want to hold on to dollars? Especially since, the regulations and the reporting and all this type of thing are so onerous for the dollar. So it depends on how long we look down the road. But the dollar's on its way out. The yuan is on its way in.
Is that why the Chinese have been stocking up on every piece of gold they can find for the last 5 years?
And they have indeed. I've got to say that the Chinese are far more intelligent than the people that are running these Western governments. So there's no question in my mind that the 21st century is going to be the Chinese century.
Are rising gasoline prices a predictor of a recession?
Well, there's so many factors on gasoline prices. The supply coming from fracking, demand, which varies with the economy. I trade commodities, but I don't have any current opinion on gasoline prices or what they may mean for the current economy. You can't have a well-founded opinion on everything, quite frankly.
Doug, are rising interest rates likely to affect the economy and the real estate market?
Oh, hugely. The whole world revolves around interest rates, and these central banks have artificially suppressed them, which have caused people to consume much more than they otherwise would and save much less. So the ultimate result of their having done this is going to be a catastrophe. And interest rates are probably heading up at this time. It'll hurt the stock market. It'll devastate the real estate market. The bond market floats inversely with interest rates. So absolutely, interest rates are the most important single financial indicator. And they're totally screwy with what these central banks have done.
Is it possible for the U.S. to raise rates and yet Europe and Japan are trying to keep them as low as possible? Is that a conflict, and what's going to happen because of that?
Well, it's one reason why the dollar has been as strong as it has, because U.S. interest rates are generally higher than those in Europe or Japan, where the Japanese, idiotically, are actually trying to keep them at zero. So the yen is going to be destroyed. And so is the euro, for that matter.
Are they going to have to switch to different currencies, and is that possible? And will the yuan become basically the reserve currency of the world?
Well, actually, what should happen is gold should be used as the world's reserve currency, which was the case before the 1930s, or to some degree when the dollar was exchangeable for gold by foreign governments before 1971. But sure, gold is going to be remonetized and is going to be used in day-to-day commerce in the future. Now, I know that sounds very improbable with the way things are going, but after the current monetary system collapses, and it will, because it's a house of cards built on a foundation of sand, things are going to reorient, and I think it's likely to be that way.
President Trump is obsessed with trade deficits. Should he be more concerned about the U.S. government deficit?
Yes, of course. The U.S. government, or for that matter, any government, shouldn't have anything to do with what people buy or sell or the economy. I know that's going to shock a lot of people when they hear a statement like that, but the purpose of government is basically to protect you from force. A police force, an army, it should have a court system, but there's not much else that's useful for a government to do. Certainly not regulate trade, which is the main thing that they do today, economic regulation. Well, that's where the money is for the people that are in the deep state, in and around government. So the answer to the question is the government shouldn't get deficits of any kind. And whether there's a trade deficit or not, that's meaningless and fluctuates, especially if you have a sound currency. That's why gold should be used, because it's self-regulating. But that's not the world we live in today.
We're hearing President Trump is likely to make wide-ranging changes to Dodd-Frank. Should reinstatement of the full uptick rule be a top priority for stock market stability?
There shouldn't, look, the SEC in the U.S. and its equivalents in Canada should be abolished. They serve no useful purpose. All they do is create distortions in the marketplace and immensely increase the costs of doing business in securities. They don't serve a useful purpose, quite frankly. So that's my answer to that.
President Trump is proposing real free trade, no tariffs, no barriers, no subsidies. Is that a good idea?
It's an excellent idea. You know, Trump doesn't have a philosophical core. I don't think he thinks these things out very well, but a lot of his gut feelings are not bad, and this is one of them. The problem is that if he really wants to go in that direction, he may start a trade war on the way and make it impossible to do what he says he'd like to do. So I can't really get inside the man's mind. I'm not sure anybody else can. But the idea of having zero trade barriers, tariffs, quotas, so forth, excellent idea. And if that's what he really wants to do, God bless him. I hope he succeeds.
Should the G7 become the G8 again and include Russia?
Yes, of course it should, on the one hand. And why isn't China part of this G group? Because China's now the world's second largest economy, and it won't be long before China's the world's largest economy. And it won't be long after that until China is triple the size of the next largest economy. So it's ridiculous that that not only Russia, but China is not part of this. But on the other hand, should there be a G group at all? All it is a bunch of ministers from these various governments that get to hang around together and scratch each other's backs and do various deals to benefit them as individuals. So I'm not for paying these I'm not for having these government ministers hang around with each other at huge public expense and probably do stupid things to start with. So I think the so-called G groups should be abolished. But if you're not going to abolish them, Russia and China should both be members.
We'll have more with Doug Casey next on This Week in Money.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. Work programs are underway in Finland and planned for Canada this summer. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol ADD, on Frankfurt symbol 82A1, and the OTCQB symbol ASDZF. Please visit our website arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan district of northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Doug Casey. Doug, have you ever met President Trump?
I never have. We have a lot of common friends and acquaintances, but never met the man personally.
Is Trump turning out to be the peace president?
That's the $64 question. I applaud what he's doing in Korea. I think it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's intelligent. If you have a conflict with a potential adversary, the best thing to do is sit down and talk to him. And not in the context that high government officials do this. I mean, one of the good things about Trump is that he tends to want to solve these problems as an individual, and that's actually the best way to do it. So that's wonderful, what he's doing in Korea. On the other hand, he's still droning and bombing people in Syria and the Middle East, and the U.S. has combat troops in 100 countries around the world. So it's hard to say what he's doing. Is he a peace president? Yeah, in Korea, wonderful. The rest of the world, that remains to be seen.
Is President Trump targeting the corrupt political system?
That's a good question. That's what we call the deep state. This is thousands of people that are entrenched in the government and institutions around the government. People who live in around the Washington Beltway, people in academia, high corporate guys. They hate Trump as a general rule, and he hates them, so hopefully he'll break their rice bowls for them. But once again, I don't really know what Trump, what's going on in his mind or what he wants to accomplish, but in a way, the enemy of my enemy may be my friend in this case, and that could be Trump.
Are the UN and International Monetary Fund products of the New World Order?
Yeah, look, the IMF and the World Bank and the United Nations and all of these supranational organizations, they serve absolutely no useful purpose. They're a sweet deal for the bureaucrats that get to hang around and play big shot in them and set things up so that they can become centimillionaires after they graduate into the private sector, so-called. But they serve no useful purpose.
Is the fight against the deep state and draining the swamp going to spread to other countries?
That's going to be hard to do because the U.S. has historically been the freest major country in the world. Now that's changing. It's going downhill. But as hard as it is to root out the deep state in the U.S., and I don't think Trump is going to succeed, it's much harder in other countries. So I wouldn't be overly optimistic.
Are we witnessing the end of globalism?
Globalism. Well, we have to define that. I'm an internationalist myself. I make the world my oyster. I believe that I should be able to go anywhere and do anything in any country. Globalism is a little bit different from internationalism. Globalism is where high government officials are basically trying to impose the equivalent of a one-world government on the world. So a pox on globalism. We're talking about the future and what's going to happen. The only thing I'm reasonably confident about now is that we're going to have some type of a real financial collapse in the next few years. And how the powers that be react to that is going to contain the answer to that question about are we going to get globalism or not? Because they've done most of the things that they can do within the Keynesian paradigm, reducing interest rates, printing up trillions of currency units. They've already shot those arrows from their quiver. So what are they going to do when the economy implodes again in the near term? Well, I guess they'll just do more of that, which is going to make things even worse. So hard to answer that question.
Is the European Union likely to survive?
No, it's not likely to survive. It's likely to fall apart. What you've seen in parts of Italy, what you've seen in Catalonia and Spain, this is true all over Europe. With a little bit of luck, there won't be just one EU run by the idiots in Brussels. Ideally, there will be 100 European nations over the next couple of generations. So no, the EU is not going to survive.
Somebody suggested we're going to go back to city-states like the glory days of Venice back in the 1500s. Is that a good idea?
I don't advocate or believe in political forms of organization. I believe in individualism and limiting politics and government to an absolute minimum. Within that context, the city-state is ideal because people can relate to each other as individuals more than they can with a distant national government that treats them all as no more than cogs in a wheel. Still, that said, even the city councils of small towns are corrupt and bureaucratic. It's the problem is thinking of government as being the solution. Government is the problem, not the solution in almost every case. But yeah, city-states would be much better than the current giant nation-states that we have.
Do you believe in borders?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me put it this way. There seem to be a lot of people that are for totally open immigration all over the world. It's like Trudeau probably feels that there's nothing wrong with Canada that 20 million Nigerian migrants can't cure. I don't believe in that kind of an open border. But here's what I do believe in. It's that you should be able, as an individual, to go anywhere. But if everything is privately owned, you've got to support yourself. You've got to pay your own plane ticket. You've got to support yourself while you're there. If everything was privately owned, you wouldn't even be able to sleep under a bridge. That's going to be privately owned, too. So the answer to the question is not to have welfare benefits anywhere in the world, because welfare benefits absolutely draw the wrong kind of migrant. Freeloaders that know that they can get freebies when they come to a country like the U.S. or Canada. So you've got to abolish all welfare benefits of whatever type, number one. And number two, all property has to be privately owned so that when somebody comes to a country, they've got to pay their own way. So that's my answer to the open borders situation.
Is government-sponsored multiculturalism a good thing?
It's a catastrophe. It's a disastrous thing. Governments, look, there's only one culture in the whole history of the world that's worth anything. It's worth more than all the other cultures put together by an order of magnitude, and that's Western civilization. So you can't have multiculturalism within a country. It inevitably leads to conflict. So the whole idea of multiculturalism is destructive and stupid.
Billionaire venture capitalist Tim Draper wants California to be broken into 3 smaller states. It'll be on their November ballot. Your thoughts on it?
A step in the right direction, but I'm not sure the way he's divided California up is the most intelligent way, because it's a cultural difference. And L.A. and the areas in Southern California on the coast have one culture. San Francisco has another culture. It should be by counties. You've got these red counties and blue counties in the U.S., and most of California, outside of the San Francisco and L.A. metropolitan areas, most of that part of California is actually like the rest of the U.S. You've got farmers and ranchers and people in small towns. So I'm not sure it's being divided in the right way, but the idea, in principle, is a good one. California is way too big to be a single entity anymore.
Have you ever been to North Korea?
No, I haven't. Been to South Korea a number of times. Used to live in the Orient, but I'd like to go there and see for myself exactly what's going on, and get out of Pyongyang and get into the countryside if that's possible. So it's on my travel plans, but no, not yet.
Are Canadian mining companies looking to North Korea for growth?
Well, you know, nobody's doing it yet that I know of, no. I think it's just going to be too hard to do anything there, just like it's too hard to do anything in Cuba. So these people's republics don't understand property rights. They don't understand business. They just make things impossible. So I think that's quite a ways down the road.
Is the U.S. a better place to live than Canada?
Yeah, having lived in both places, it's hard to say. You don't want to be a full-time resident of either country, because unless you're an American, if you don't have roots. Look, any Canadian, Canada's a great country. I used to live in Vancouver, loved it. But why any Canadian would live in Canada where he has to pay Canadian taxes makes no sense to me. I mean, you should live in 2 countries, at least, no more than 6 months of the year in either, so you don't have to pay taxes in either. So that's my answer to the question. But both the U.S. and Canada are very pleasant to live in. I've lived in a dozen countries. I've traveled to 160. They're 2 of my favorites. Don't care for their governments, but love the countries.
Have you ever been to the Bilderberg meeting?
No, I don't think I'd be welcome there. I don't think I'd get along with any of the people that go there. We don't think the same way.
What are your thoughts on the Green Movement?
I think it's silly. The Green Movement is mostly a bunch of busybodies. Look, I clean air, clean water, just like anybody else does. But their economic solutions to problems when they come up are generally idiotic. So the Green Party are basically socialists. They're watermelons. They're red on the inside, green on the outside.
Do you drive an electric car?
I wouldn't mind driving an electric car. I've always driven high-performance cars my whole life. And electric cars today are generally very high performance. The fact of the matter is, I don't drive one now, but I'm open to it. I want the technology to be fully developed before I actually buy one of the things. So I'm open to it. Very open.
Would you trust a self-driving car?
Once again, the pioneers are the guys that get the arrows in their back. I'll consider it in the future, but I'm in no hurry.
Are you bullish on electric vehicle battery metals?
Yeah, I think so. I think that electricity is the way things are going to go. Nothing wrong with using fossil fuels, but there actually are a lot of advantages to electric technology when it comes to vehicles. A lot of advantages. And, the metals that appear most useful for batteries are cobalt, nickel, vanadium, lithium. Absolutely. But, technology keeps evolving. And with structures like carbon nanotubes and so forth coming online, that may totally disrupt the entire nature of batteries in the near future. So there's no trend that lasts forever.
What are your thoughts on charities and foundations?
Most of them are a huge misallocation of time and money. You set up a charity, you're basically creating an endowment for the board of directors to play big shot with your money, and generally you're subsidizing people that don't deserve to be subsidized. I think that you ought to try to help make the competent and the successful more successful, and the people that aren't, let them figure out why they're unsuccessful. It's usually because they have bad habits and bad values. So, no, I don't think charities are a good idea. If you want to do a charity, do it on a one-to-one basis with an individual that you think deserves it, not a class of people. It's ridiculous. Destructive, usually.
Where is society headed?
Well, I think Ray Kurzweil is right. And he wrote a book called, which everybody should read, incidentally, called The Singularity is Near. Basically, technology is advancing, all technologies are advancing at the rate of Moore's Law. And probably in 20 or 30 years at most, the world is going to change almost unrecognizably. So I'm very optimistic for the long-term future, which is only 20 or 30 years the way I see it. But the short term, we're going to have some tough times. So that's my view in a nutshell.
Are we going to see a lot of jobs replaced by robots and people just wandering the streets?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. In 20 years, I think there are going to be robots almost of a class of Mr. Data walking around. And that is going to totally overturn the way things are done, the way things are thinking, family structures, everything. This is a gigantic elephant in the room that nobody's even looking at. Robots are going to be huge.
What is the 80-20 rule?
Pareto's law. So 80% of everything is crap. That's one variation of it. Another variation is that 20% of your salesmen do 80% of your selling. 80% of all the crime in the world is done by 20%. In other words, it breaks down that way. It's a variation of the bell-shaped curve. So something you ought to keep in mind when you're investing or dealing with people or anything.
What is stupid?
Stupid. That's a word which is used without being properly defined. I define stupid as an inability to predict not the immediate and direct effects of actions. Anybody can do that. But an inability to predict the indirect and delayed effects of actions. So most of the things that are stupid are actually things that show an unwitting tendency to self-destruction. That's why slapstick comedy is funny, because it emphasizes the stupid side of life.
How can people find out more about your novels and KC Research?
Well, I'd go to kcresearch.com, or better, go to a website called internationalman.com. That's an excellent one. Or just go on to Amazon and pick up Speculator and Drug Lord. I promise you'll be amused.
Doug, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Well, it's always a pleasure. We'll perhaps do this after the next novel, Assassin, comes out.
Thanks again, Doug.
Have a good one.
My guest has been Doug Casey, founder and chairman of Casey Research, online at caseyresearch.com. He was speaking to us from Aspen, Colorado. Coming up, market historian Bob Hoye, next on This Week in Money.
I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the pink symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWPF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. We're chatting with market historian Bob Hoye, chief investment strategist for chartsandmarkets.com. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Yeah, Jim, good to be with you. Those who have been listening to us for a while would realize we've got a name change in here. And after more than 20 years as institutional advisors, we began to realize that there was some compliance risk with having advisors in there. So, and the market's changed, so we're now Charts and Markets, and we've a new website, chartsandmarkets.com, or you can get in touch directly on my side just by going bobhoye.com. So it's a new week, Jim.
Currency turmoil rocking the planet. Argentina is where it seems to have started. Is it going to spread from there?
Yeah, well, remember about 3 weeks ago when all of a sudden, whack, the Argentine peso got hit, and that was the same time was also the Turkish lira. It was hit at the same time. So yesterday when the peso got hit, I took a look at the Turkish currency and no change there, so at the moment. But, of course, this is what happens when in lesser countries you have a hit. They sort of kind of like run out of reserves of proper, i.e. U.S. dollar currencies, and then they have to, then it just goes all to hell. And this is what's happening here now. Now, the fun was, well, you can't say it's fun, Jim, but 1997 was the start of what they called the Asian crisis, and it started, I remember, on July 1st with the Thai currency down, and of course the Thai central bank had run out of U.S. dollar reserves, so interest rates go up and the currency goes down, and then the establishment immediately said, this is a local issue. Then about 3 or 4 weeks later, it hit the Philippines, and then they said we could isolate it. And it took until that September to hit the New York bond market, and I remember at the time the U.S. corporate bond market had one of the worst months in about a decade. So these problems that appear following a great boom, where the problems initially appear in lesser countries, they eventually will end up hitting the senior markets in London and New York. That seems to be happening. So even on these lesser, problems being discovered in lesser countries, in Roman times, the Roman writer Cicero wrote that very thing, that if you had a problem in the Middle East market, like at Phoenicia, which was important trading center, and if they had a financial problem, he said it would hit Rome, and that was the case 2,000 years ago, and here it's happening now. So just to wrap up how this fits in, what we were looking for, Jim, you remember that out of the hit in January, February, we expected the stock markets to recover, perhaps out to around May. And then we had our friends of the bull market, which would be a favorable trend in credit spreads and a favorable trend in the yield curve, plus favorable action in industrial commodities. And fortunately, all this more or less came in, and it made it to around May. And within the group of industrial commodities, the lumber was fabulous, just an outstanding rally into May, and it, as it was peaking, generated all kinds of technical readings. And then the first week of the correction, there were a couple of down days, down limit days, which are bad. And then in this week, there were a couple of down limit days, so it's getting pretty nasty on the decline. And of course, with this, Jim, has been the firming U.S. dollar, which many people who follow the dollar and follow precious metals look at the Fed and say it's reckless and it's going to push the dollar down and precious metals up, but that has not been happening. What we do is just look at the chart on the U.S. dollar, the DX, as many call it, and it was in a decline, and then earlier in the year, that sold off sharply down to 88, I think it was. And it generated our readings, downside capitulation. It was oversold. Now, with that, you wouldn't want a straight-up rebound. You'd want it to build a base for many months. And the reason for that is that we looked at the base that was built in 2014, and it led to a terrific rally, and then you had crude oil going from 107 down to 27. And then in 2008, you had that same oversold on the dollar, and then months of building a base. Then the trick of it, Jim, was to rise above the 20-week exponential moving average, which this time around was on April the 23rd, if I recall correctly. So that we had the pattern for a significant rally in the dollar, and we're getting it. So here, and of course, on like yesterday, with the sudden hit to the Argentine peso, bang, the U.S. dollar was up. So it's uncomfortable to those who weren't prepared for it, but on our charts, say, hey, it's fine. This is what we were looking for. So what this is doing to the stock market is, we figured that it would be favorable into around May, and then giving us a little room. We said that the good stuff could prevail into mid-year, and it looks like it's peaked. So what we want to do is figure out what's going to happen next.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye next on This Week in Money.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, what do you think is going to happen with gold?
Well, gold is a very important part of the financial spectrum. And in the final analysis, gold really is money. And this is where it gets perplexing to the gold bugs, is because in a great financial boom, which we have been in, similar to 1929 or the one in 1873, or even the South Sea bubble, that was the first one in 1720, gold real price, as deflated by the CPI, goes down in a great boom, and gold stocks underperform. So we can say that, hey, the boom really started to accelerate in 2011, and that was just as that terrific speculation in precious metals was ending, and then you've had a bear market for a long time since, dismal market, and but the real price has declined since 2011. And definitely the gold stocks have underperformed. At times they've been disastrous. But what's happening with the real price now is that if you look at it on annual averages, you can say that last year was sort of a basing year, and then you can say that it's been improving since. As, well, for example, you've had the bubble in long-dated treasury bonds was over. And then at the first of the year, you had the bubble in Bitcoin, which was phenomenal blowout. And then the high on the senior stock indexes was in January. And then, but after, and here's where it will be interesting for gold, is after mid-year, this year we called our friends of the bull market, we also called it sunshine. So the sunshine was to prevail about now, it's over. And then in August we'd get into the twilight. That's fooling around with imagery. And then in the fall it could be into the twilight zone. You remember that show on TV that was so well written with so many horror things happening. So yeah, we think we're in the transition now to twilight, and then into the twilight zone. And bear markets are never, you don't want to be around for them. So the reason why gold stocks will not, they might be a little trade in here for a bit, but they will of course go down with the big market when the big market rolls over. But at the same time, the investment demand for gold will go up. And the reason for that is that in a financial storm, the very careful money goes to the most liquid items. It doesn't care for return. It just wants to park and then be able to get out of it. And the most liquid items, of course, are gold and short-dated instruments in U.S. dollars, treasury bills. So you'll have a bid for gold, but you'll also have a bid for U.S. treasury bills, which means a bid for the dollar. So we don't see making money either way, either long or short, in gold in U.S. dollars. But what this will do, Jim, is set up a terrific buying opportunity for the gold stocks for the next bull market. And that is, at least the bottom will be sometime ahead of us.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye next on This Week in Money.
Hi, I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Magnum Gold Corp. Inc., MGI on the TSX Venture Exchange. A 2015 drill program on the LH property intersected high-grade gold, including 16.9 meters of 13.58 grams and 11 meters of 20.66 grams per ton gold. A follow-up drill program is planned to further evaluate previously identified subsurface high-grade gold mineralization. Please visit our website at magnumgoldcorp.com.
MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, does the election of Doug Ford in Ontario send a message to the business community in Canada?
Oh, yeah, because the previous, although they were called Liberal administration in Ontario, were just a bunch of raging socialists and messed up electrical power system so badly. This is has been a very, very bad government, and so it'll take some time to clean it up. But and beyond Ontario, which of course it has been the industrial base of Canada, but beyond that, it shows, and I take this as a step in a popular uprising. The same movement that in the U.S. developed and selected Trump as its leader. And so the uprising in the U.S. has an executive in President Trump. And in Canada, there's been no visible uprising until this election, and that's not at the federal level, of course, it's provincial. But it's a start, and I think that, of course, this uprising is occurring in England, too, with the Brexit, and then the Italian election of a couple of weeks ago is another step away from the long experiment in central authority. So I welcome it, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. On affecting the markets in Canada, not much. You still got a bunch of socialists running the federal government until the popular uprising gets them at the federal level, which I think will happen on the next election. I think the Conservatives will win. So that's something we can look forward to. In the meantime, there's a considerable risk in corporate bonds on the lower grade. Junk and high yield and all that sort of stuff is risky. And now commodities had it. I mean, that peak is done. So there's nowhere to go there, and there's not going to be a good trade out of the gold side for some time yet. So the safest place to be would be in 3 to 4 year corporate bonds, investment grade, of course, and you won't get hit on price fluctuation too badly. And you won't. The quality risk is limited. So, and then with that, you'd want to own quite a few U.S. corporates because relative to Canada, the U.S. dollar will go up. So you'll have a reasonable yield. You'll be secure, and then plus make a few points out of on the currency side. So it's a safe place to be, but it'll probably make more money than a whole lot of our other alternatives.
Bob, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Good to be with you, Jim, and look forward to next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye, Chief Investment Strategist for ChartsandMarkets.com. He was speaking to us from Vancouver. And that wraps up our show for this week. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Doug Casey, and Bob Hoye, and thank you for listening. If you have any questions for the show or our guests, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Now, stand by for company showcase updates from American Manganese CEO Larry Reaugh, Carl Data Solutions Greg Johnston, and Cypress Development's Don Mosher.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. Larry, welcome back to the show.
Always glad to be on the show, Jim.
The Cobalt Initiative, what is it and how big of a deal is it?
Well, it was started in China. It's called the Responsible Cobalt Initiative, and it's got the who's who of companies in there. Certainly it's a small list at this time. We're the 33rd member. And but we have companies in there that we share the membership with, like Apple and Daimler and BMW and LG Chem and Samsung, Volvo, and the list goes on. There's a lot of big Chinese companies in there, and this was an initiative that was actually started in China, and it's to deal with cobalt out of the DRC, conflict metals, and to try to establish a chain of responsibility. And we thought it was a good place for Amy to be, and we were accepted into that group in the last 2 days. So I'm happy to be, at least visible along with some of the biggest companies in the world. And the basic thing is that we've been trying to address that problem. As you know, we've gone into a blockchain agreement with a company in London, and that is to track the spent batteries and their origin and where they end up. And not only that, does that give us a conflict-free metal to work with from a battery, but it also helps to basically identify where all the batteries are going to end up at the end of life. So we've had a lot of news in the last week, and as you know, we just received our Canadian patent for the manganese process that was patented in the U.S. and China and South Africa about 5 years ago. So, that takes a while to get it through the Canadian Patent Office, but it's done. And our patent, of course, on our recycling has been published, and so that has brought in renewed interest into what we're doing. And the pilot plant is well underway. Cometco's working on that. They had some long lead items that they had to order, but that should be hopefully up and running here within the next several weeks or a few months. And so everything's moving ahead well. We're financed to get through the pilot plant stage, and we've got warrants coming due, so I'm hoping that we can get those exercised so that we don't have to go to the market again. But if we have to, we will, and so everything's just been moving along quite well for the company. The markets are a little shabby today, but what's new? It's you're fighting a market that seems to want to go down, but people have not recognized just how important recycling is, and when they do, I think our day to shine in the sun will be coming very shortly.
Well, Larry, the great thing about having a local recycling plant is you don't have to jump through the hoops of a corrupt Congolese government.
Well, that's true. When you're recycling the batteries, you probably will not know if some of the cobalt material is a conflict metal because, that could have happened 5-8 years ago when it was put into a battery. But anybody using our products knows it's not coming out of the Congo, and, it's basically conflict-free. So that's a big plus. I'm sure that the shareholders are going to be proud of that.
Larry, for our new listeners, can you tell us what American Manganese does and what it hopes to do?
American Manganese is a company that holds a process for recycling lithium-ion batteries, and so far we're able to get 100% of the cathode materials out, which nobody else is able to do. As a matter of fact, Jim, in that regard, we've had some big interest from a huge battery manufacturer out of China, and they have checked all over China to see if anybody was as advanced as we are, and they couldn't find anybody. So that's a big feather in our cap. And that'll be recognized here sometime soon, so the shareholders should, be able to benefit from that.
Larry, where are you traded, and how can people find out more information about the company?
We're traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AMY, in the U.S. under the symbol AMYZF, and in Frankfurt under the symbol of 2AM. They can go to our website at AmericanManganeseInc.com, and all our information is on there, including our business plan. So that would be enlightening for new shareholders. And you can contact us or contact me at LReaugh, LREAUGH, at AMYMN.com. Or you can phone the company here at 778-574-4444.
Larry, thanks for the update.
You're welcome, Jim.
I've been speaking with Larry Reaugh, CEO and President of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on June 15th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Greg Johnston, CEO and President of Carl Data Solutions. Welcome back to the show, Greg.
Thanks, Jim. Good to be here.
Carl just sent out a brand new news release. What can you tell us about it?
Carl just purchased a company called Astra Smart Systems. It's part cash, part share purchase. Astra is does very complementary things to what Carl does. They're in the IoT big data space. They also add a new dimension for us, which is one that we are very interested in because of future data storage, which is they're building machines that write directly to blockchain technology, or devices that write directly to blockchain technology. And they also have a data hosting for transaction processing. So it expands upon our offerings, what Carl actually offers, and then the products are very complementary to what we already do in terms of environmental sensors, the big data, and the industrial Internet of Things.
And on top of all that, what else has the company been up to?
Well, the company has done extremely well for a group that's only been in business for about just a little over a year. They're doing about $115,000 a month in revenue, so they've done very well. We expect that to go up to about $150,000 in the not too distant future. So effectively, what we've done is we've really doubled our revenue as an enterprise, which is good news for our shareholders.
Greg, for newcomers to the show, can you tell us what Carl Data Solutions does?
We're a big data company. We focus on environmental sensor monitoring. So we collect a large amount of data. We process that data and we deliver it to our clients. All that information in software as a service or SaaS-based applications and web services. so people can make intelligent decisions. Our technology is heads and shoulders above our competition, as it's built on an infrastructure that can handle extremely large amounts of data and be able to manipulate that data very, very quickly, near real time, and deliver the results to our customers. We also build custom hardware solutions to complement our software where required that helps get that data from the field from whatever's being measured into our cloud-based solution and up to the engineers and data analysts that are actually looking at the information and making decisions.
Greg, where is Carl Data Solutions traded and under what symbols?
We're traded under the CSE. The sign is CRL. We're also traded on the OTC. The symbol is CPTAF.
Greg, and how can people get more information about Carl Data Solutions?
They can shoot off an email to info@carlsolutions.com.
Greg, thanks a lot for the update.
Thanks, Jim.
I've been speaking with Greg Johnston, CEO and President of Carl Data Solutions. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on June 11th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HowStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. I'm speaking with Don Mosher, Cypress Development Corporate Consultant. Welcome back to the show, Don.
Always my pleasure, Jim.
A couple of new things to announce. You take it away.
Well, we had announced a resource going back to May 1st, and on the 5th we published our 43101 resource. There were some minor changes in it. The biggest thing is the total indicated mineral resource on this is 697 million tons at an average grade of 886 parts per million. So the equivalent of almost 3.3 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent in the ground. Just the starter pit on this particular project, if it goes into production, will be over 40-year mine life, just focused on a higher grade area that we'll be putting into a preliminary economic assessment coming out hopefully before the end of July. And it'll focus on about 300 million tons of this.
And is there anything new in it that we didn't know before?
Not really. I mean, Bill Willoughby, who's our CEO, continues to move forward on the processing side. The big issue with these claystone deposits is there is not a commercial operation in the world. So we need to demonstrate to the market that we're going to be able to dig up the ore and process it and economically do it and earn a profit by doing it. There's never been a question on the size of the resource itself. It's can you be the first company in the world to produce out of a claystone?
How complicated is it to do that?
Well, for us, it looks like it's going to be a relatively simple operation because our claystone is leachable. Some of the other claystone deposits are refractory, meaning you have to dig the clay up, you have to heat it to 1,000 degrees centigrade, more or less turn it into a brick, and then break the brick into pieces and then start the leaching process. With us, we're going to be able to dig it up, put it through a leaching process. Based on our leach kinetics, you get out 80% of the lithium in about 4 hours, and the balance goes into a tailing pond, if you want to call it that. So it's a matter of how you handle the clay, how you move the clay, how you run it through the leaching process to come out with the end result. Nobody else that I'm aware of is able to take material and leach 80% of the lithium out of it in such a short time period as 4 hours. There's another company out there that's looking at something similar, but they take 7 days to do it, and that creates a bottleneck when you're starting to handle material over a 7-day period.
Don, where are you traded and under what symbols?
We are traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange Venture Board under the symbol CYP. And you can get all the information you need on Cypress by going to our website, which is cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Don, thanks a lot for the update.
Always my pleasure, Jim. Thanks.
I've been speaking with Don Mosher, Cypress Development Corporate Consultant. I'm Jim Goddard. Our conversation took place on June 11th.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.